Spencer Rattler is one of the most polarizing players in all of college football and one of the most polarizing draft prospects for this upcoming draft class in 2024. Some look at his immense physical talent and his incredible highs on tape and say this is a top 5 pick in any draft class. Others look at the lows and some off the field concerns and say I wouldn't touch him with a 20-foot pole. He, in that sense, exemplifies the phrase boom or bust prospect. Hopefully, by the end of this video, you will understand why some say that he is maybe the most physically talented quarterback in this draft class, in a quarterback class with 4 or 5 absolute freaks of nature, while also understanding why others are skeptical of his potential to play at a high level in the NFL. Today, I hope to illuminate both sides of the coin and explain why I believe he is the leader in the clubhouse to be the 3rd quarterback taken in 2024. And with that, I'd like to say hello and welcome to the JSA studio. I'm your host, as always, Nathan. And before I begin, I would like to humbly ask you to like and subscribe as I do film breakdowns every Wednesday on this channel, and remind you that if you disagreed with me at any point, or if you just have something to say, go ahead and leave a comment down in the comment section below. Let's just remember to keep it civil. After all, what do I know? I'm just some asshole on the internet giving you his opinion. Now, with that out of the way, let's jump right into Spencer Rattler's breakdown with a summary of the film that I watched. The positives for Spencer Rattler are pretty big. He has elite escapability and is extraordinarily good at extending plays. He has elite arm talent and is a good athlete for the position. He does a lot with a little, but what do I mean with that? I do think that he has several elite caliber wide receivers, specifically number 17 Leggett, who I think is a first-round talent. But he has no run game whatsoever, and maybe the worst offensive line in college football this year. One of his best traits is his ability to know when and how to throw jump balls. And I am again going to use this time to reiterate, holy shit, his offensive line is absolutely abysmal. When we get to the film portion of this video, you'll see just how bad that offensive line is. So I really cannot undersell how horrible his offensive line play is. I mean, sometimes he doesn't even have time to make one read, let alone to go through a full progression. Now, as far as the negatives that we see on film for him, the first thing I want to say is that his completion percentage, which is hovering right about 70% right now, is inflated because his wide receivers do help him out a little bit, but also because they call a lot of screen plays and he ends up throwing a lot of swing passes as well as hot reads because his offensive line is made of Swiss cheese. The scheme also doesn't do him a lot of favors because it is NFL-esque in terms of the route concepts and a lot of the terminology that they use. It's very clearly inspired by the NFL, but the actual reads that he's making aren't all that high level. However, again, that could be a symptom of the fact that they don't have time for him to go through a full progression like 75 to 80% of the time. There also is a lot of yak from his receivers, specifically number 10 Brown and number 17 Leggett. They're very good after the catch, so his passing yards numbers are also a little bit inflated. Another thing that I noticed maybe isn't so much a negative, but I'm going to put it in here. He clearly feels more comfortable operating in the hurry up right now than he does in true dropbacks. But once again, that might be a symptom of him not trusting the offensive line. And when we get to the film section of this video, I'm going to kind of take you through the UNC game, the first game of the year, a little bit more in depth than some of the other games that we're going to look at. We're actually going to look at all of the games that he's played so far this year, but most prominently the first game of the year. And in that game, he kind of has like a whole narrative arc with his offensive line that is pretty interesting to see as the game went on. The final negative that we're going to talk about here is that sometimes he holds the ball too long, and I think that's probably because he's a little bit too attached to the deep shot on certain plays. There were several times on film where he passed up a open receiver underneath to try to extend the play, and it just didn't end up working out. So with the summary kind of done, let's go ahead and jump right into the North Carolina film. So this is the first play that we're going to look at here for Spencer Rattler. And what you're going to see is Xavier Legette is going to run across the field over here. You're going to see the tight end run across over the field like this. And over here off to this side of the screen, you're actually going to see a dig concept like this from the outside receiver. And then the slot receiver is going to run a clear out route. But Spencer Rattler is not going to have time to actually get this play off, because the offensive line is going to not be able to block anybody. We're going to go ahead and play this nice and slow. We're going to see over here, they're only rushing 3 people, and he's got instant pressure right over here because his offensive line is absolutely horrible. So he's going to have to pull that ball down. He was going to hit Xavier Legette here. Instead, he's going to break the tackle. I think 25 kind of just gave up on the play for some reason. I don't particularly know why. But he's going to roll out to the right here. He's going to see his downfield receiver right here, who was actually running the dig concept and was open earlier on in the route. He just didn't have the opportunity to actually get him the ball. And he's going to shuffle to his right a little bit, and he's going to throw it to him. And that ball placement is absolutely outstanding. The ball is right here. The only person that can get that ball is his wide receiver right here. It is out of the reach of the defensive back. And he got his hands on it. He probably should have caught that. Honestly, he didn't. He dropped it. I believe that's Juice Wells right there, number 3. And if he does, he's running all the way down the field right over here. He's got one guy right here to make miss. This could have been a very big play. But this is what you see a lot on film with Spencer Rattler. It's him creating when he has pressure, and it's really, really good ball placement at times. So this play right here, we're a little bit further on in the game now. That was the first drive. This is the second drive, I believe, for South Carolina. And you're going to see another little dig concept here with Legette, number 17, right here, and number 89 running a little clear out route down the field. And what's going to happen as I let this play is North Carolina is going to blitz their middle linebacker, and they are going to get home. But Spencer Rattler is actually not going to scramble despite having an opportunity. Actually, it was a little bit further back than this. He has an opportunity right about right now to bail out on this play and try to extend it. But he isn't actually going to do that because he still has some confidence in his offensive line. So he's going to stand in there, sidestep, wait for just a second, and look at where he is when he's throwing this ball. His feet are basically off the ground because he has to get over the middle linebacker who blitzed to throw the ball. And he is going to deliver a strike with nothing but his arm 20 yards down the field to Xavier Legette. Now, you can complain about ball placement all you want. On this play, this is a very, very good play. He's standing in there, taking the hit, and delivering a strike. So on this play right here, we're in the later stages of the game now. And what you're going to see here is that this linebacker right here is going to blitz right into the B gap. And Spencer Rattler is going to recognize the blitz. And since he is losing faith in his offensive line right here, he isn't even really going to look down the field. He's going to have a crossing route right over here along with a crossing route right over here. He's not even really going to look at that. He's just going to hit the flat, hot route right here to the running back. So let's go ahead and play it here for a minute. And there we go. He's not even dicking around. He knows he doesn't have time. And guess what? Number 13 here, if we let the play maybe develop a little bit, Leggett might be open right here. Actually, that's not Leggett. That's number 1. Number 13 might be open right here. He might be open if this linebacker jumps on him, which it looks like that's what's going to happen. But he does not have time to do any of that. So instead, he's going to jump it off to his running back, who is not going to be able to make a play. He's just going to have to go down for no gain. So on this play right here, the offensive line is going to cost Spencer Rattler a touchdown. Over here on the right side of the screen, which you can't actually see because of the camera angle, you're going to see 3 wide receivers. The wide receiver all the way on the right is going to go downfield and run a little curl route. Wide receiver in the middle is going to run a little route like this and end up about 5 yards deep in the end zone, about right there. The third wide receiver, who actually I think is the tight end number 1, is going to run a similar route right over here and end up almost right here on the screen. The purpose of this play is to trick this defender right here, the free safety, into jumping the underneath route so that Spencer Rattler can throw it over to right here and get a touchdown. And it's going to work perfectly. The route is going to be wide open, but instead you're going to see right here, number 53, the center, get his ass absolutely handed to him, and you're going to see the right tackle, number 62, right here, get his ass absolutely handed to him. This guy won the pass set in like half of a second. Now listen, North Carolina's a good team, solid defensive line, but they ain't that good. This defensive line has not looked like this in other games. And now Spencer Rattler has pressure right in front of him. He's going to be unable to see or to step into the throw and to deliver a strike to this receiver right here, because we're going to see the free safety right here jump the underneath route, which means that if he can keep running and he has time, this could be a touchdown. But it isn't, because the offensive line couldn't block anybody. You see the free safety go to the wide receiver underneath, and he is wide open in the end zone for a touchdown. And it would have been 6, but the offensive line couldn't block anybody. That ball is short hopped because Spencer Rattler couldn't step into the throw. You know, they say a broken clock is still right twice a day. Well, I'm going to offer my own variation on that phrase. Twice a game, a South Carolina offensive line actually pass blocks pretty well. This is one of those instances. What you're going to see here is this little defensive end here is actually going to run a stunt and come around. This middle linebacker is going to blitz. The center is going to pick him up. The guard and tackle are going to double team the 3 technique right here. The right tackle is going to take on this other 3 technique, and the looping defender is going to be taken on by the right guard. But what we're actually going to be doing on this play is watching Spencer Rattler and seeing how he reacts on this play, because his offensive line is actually going to pass block. They're going to give him an adequate amount of time. Look at him. He's not looking down the field. This is like 1 second into the play. Where's his eyes? His eyes are on the offensive line. He is not looking down the field. Do you want to know why? Because he doesn't trust his offensive line at all. So he is going to scramble. And even though the offensive line actually would have given him a clean pocket and a better path to extend the play if necessary, he has no faith in them. So he's actually going to end up just dumping the ball off to his running back right here, who's going to lose yardage, I believe, on this play. It's just, you hate to see it, because he was really, really good in this game. And He was like 30 for 39 for like 350 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was pretty good in this game, and the offensive line absolutely ruined it. I believe he was sacked 9 times. You can't play with that poor of an offensive line. Nobody can. So we're moving on to Furman here the next week after the loss to North Carolina. And right now it's a tight ball game. It won't be for very long, but right now it's a tight ball game. This is 3rd and 8. And what you're going to see here is a variation on a smash concept where Leggett is going to go about 5 yards down the field and run an in route. And the middle receiver is going to go down the field 12 to 15 yards and run an out route. And Spencer Rattler is going to have time to make this throw because they're playing a Division II team. And we're going to let it play. And he's just going to miss this throw. There's not a whole lot to talk about with this other than he's going to miss it. And see here, he's fading away for no reason. I think this is still probably a product of where his offensive line is and the confidence that he has in the offensive line here. But you see how he's fading away. That's why I drew that line there. You see how he's fading away from where the ball needs to be. He's not stepping into the throw, even though he has plenty of space to step into the throw. Another little thing here is that this is clearly thrown to be a lob. This should not be a lob. This is a strike. So that is a little bit of a concern. I mean, obviously, this is way, way high. Like, he has to jump as high as he can. The ball's behind whatever that thing is there, the light pole or something. I don't know what that is. But the ball is right there behind it. It's way too high. Even if he had caught it, he's 5 yards out of bounds at this point. It's just a miss, and you do see that occasionally with him on film where he's got maybe too much confidence in his arm, even though he does have that, what I call it easy arm talent where he can kind of just flick the ball and get it almost anywhere that he wants to. He does trust that arm too much sometimes, and I wanted to show you an actual example of that happening. So this is a little bit later on in the half now, and basically on this play you're going to have Leggett right here, and he's just going to run down the field. There's 23 seconds left in the half, and it's 1st and 10. You're up by 6 points, which is not as comfortable of a lead as you would like it to be. And what you're going to see here is that this right tackle is going to get absolutely obliterated, and Spencer Rattler is going to swing out over here and then just say, fuck it, Leggett's down there somewhere, and throw the ball to him. And this is a special play, not only because of the location of the ball and where it is put so that Leggett can catch it, but also just the arm talent to get it there. This is a difficult throw. He's going to let it go at like the 20, and Leggett is going to catch it at like the opposite 20 almost. It's going to be like the opposite 25. This is a very difficult throw to make, and he puts the ball, you can't see it because the film's blurry, I understand, but the ball's right there, right where I circled it, and Leggett catches it because he's really, really good at catching jump balls, and Spencer Rattler understands that. He understands when to throw the ball and say, hey, this is a good chance to take a risk. He doesn't really throw a lot of interceptions when you actually look on the film. He did last year, 2022, South Carolina. He threw a lot of interceptions that he didn't need to. But so far this year, he is not forcing as many passes, and he's much more selective on when he decides to go gunslinger mode. And this was one of those instances where it is absolutely, maybe not necessary, but it absolutely should be encouraged to go gunslinger mode. And he completes the pass. It's a big play. Leggett is phenomenal. He's a first-round caliber wide receiver. Spencer Rattler understands that and says, I'm going to trust my receiver to make a play. So now we're on to Mississippi State, and Spencer Rattler right here. I wanted to talk about this play because he's going to hit Xavier Legette on a little drag route right across the field here, and then Xavier Legette is going to turn on the burners and score a touchdown. But I really wanted to highlight the ball placement on this play. So Spencer Rattler is going to recognize the blitz. The running back is going to do a good job picking up the free defender, and he's going to stand in there as long as he can, and then he's going to hit Xavier Legette. Look where he catches that ball. That is perfect ball placement, right in the pocket, right at his chest. This is very good ball placement, and Legette is going to recognize that there is nobody that's going to catch him because the safety is going to take a horrible angle, and he is going to house this ball. If Spencer Rattler, I'll just let it play. If Spencer Rattler doesn't throw that ball perfectly, this probably isn't a score. It's still a big play. He almost certainly gets the first down. But with the perfect pass, this becomes a touchdown. And you see instances of that on the film. He's not C.J. Stroud. He's not perfect like 99% of the time. But he's very accurate when he's on. Sometimes he's on, sometimes he's not. He was on for this game. We'll get to the following game after this when he wasn't on. This play right here, as you see, South Carolina has a slim lead, and it's the first play of the second half. What you're going to see here is you're just going to see a straight vert 9 route out on the outside by Xavier Legette. And we're going to snap the ball here. The offensive line is actually going to do a decent job pass blocking on this play. And I chose this play to highlight this right here, his mechanics. You look, you see his feet are set. They're nice and solid. And we see the point of the ball right here is on the inside of his foot, which is going to allow him to get the power necessary to sling this ball downfield. He does drift a little bit away from where he's throwing, which is a little bit of a nasty habit that he does have. Something quarterback coaches are going to take notice of when they're watching film on him. Now, Legette is open. He's actually more open than I think Spencer Rattler believed he was going to be. So he kind of threw this ball like an over-the-shoulder ball, but Legette actually decided to get a full yard of separation here late in this route. So he's going to make a great adjustment and catch the ball and then house it because he's a special talent. But I wanted to show you that play for the footwork and the mechanics because that's about as good as it gets. There's a little bit of a nitpick with the fading the ball away, but it was still an accurate pass. It was still very catchable, and Legette houses this ball. I guess I'll let it play while I continue to talk. And you do see that fairly consistently with him. It's just that most of the time when he's throwing the ball, he's running around and doing stuff. You don't see a whole lot of him standing in the pocket anymore because of the offensive line play. And he has a tremendous amount of just pressure that he's facing all the time. So now we're going to move on to Tennessee, our final game that we're going to watch together here today. And what you're going to see on this play is actually, I don't really have anything to draw on the screen because you're just going to see Spencer Rattler be extraordinarily elusive and run around and do some special things with his legs. So he's looking downfield. He's getting some pressure. He's going to throw the ball there, recognizes this underneath defender right here. That's where the drop down is. Can't throw it there. So I'm going to pull it and just try to see if I can get the hell out of here. Number 9 can't make the tackle. Maybe got held just a tad bit. Doesn't matter. But here, I'm going to outrun this linebacker, throw a little stiff arm. He's actually going to collide into this other guy, so he can't get me. 21's got no chance. Big old guy right here. 12, I'm going to out-jump his diving tackle right here. And now we're cooking. And he's going to slide late right here. catch down the field. This is one of his best runs that he's like ever had, but he does have this in him. He's not somebody who you're going to, draw up run plays for at the next level, but he is someone who can use his leg when he's out of other options. And I wanted to show a good example of that because there's not a whole lot of good in this game against Tennessee, but I wanted to show at least somewhat a positive aspect from this game. So this next play is where you're starting to question some of the decisions that Spencer Rattler is making right now. And what you're going to see on this play is he's not even going to give his offensive line a chance to fail. He's going to bail way too early and just flat out and straight up run into a sack that he did not need to take. We're going to get two angles from this, so I'm just going to let it play. Spencer Rattler is going to look downfield at one read, realize it's not there, and then try to run the ball. I think he's just flat out and straight up scared of getting sacked in the end zone. That's what I think this play is right here. I think he just doesn't trust his offensive line at all. And he has a good reason to not trust his offensive line. They're horrible. They might be the worst offensive line in the Power 5. But this is the back angle here. And he is just going to, for no reason, run into a sack. You can see here, snap the balls. And it's honestly not that bad. He sees this hole right here and it's like, oh, I can get through that. And then it's going to close instantly. Not a good idea. This is what keeping in your rush lane looks like. This is pretty good out of both of these defenders from Tennessee. And I don't know what he was thinking on this play. He was kind of off in this game, if I'm going to be honest with you. He didn't particularly look great. At this point, this was still a close game. It was 10-17, and they had 93 yards to go to tie the game, but they still were in the game at this point. And Spencer Rattler is just, for lack of a better word, rattled almost every time that he goes back to drop and pass now. This play right here, obviously, they're still in the game, technically. It's 3rd and 22. Spencer Rattler is thinking, I need to make a play. I have to be Superman. I need to make a play right here. Nobody else is going to make a play. Everything is on my shoulders. I have to be Superman. And right here, he is going to get pressure instantly. It's going to almost be like the offensive line isn't even there. It's only a 4-man rush. The left tackle just gets cooked by 27, and he is going to force a pass. It is going to sail because he's getting pressured. Tennessee defensive back is going to do a good job. He's going to catch the ball and house call it. This is Bush League by Spencer Rattler. He's forcing a ball that doesn't need to be thrown. If you're going to throw it, you have to be 100% confident that you're going to hit your guy. And there's no way that he could have been 100% confident knowing he was going to hit that guy on that play. I don't even think it was the hot read. I don't know what the hot read would have been on this play, but I guarantee you it's not the 5-yard hitch from when you're on the right hash all the way on the left side of the field. This was the turning point in this game. He should have just taken the sack. Tennessee is probably not going to march down the field with 40 seconds left and only one timeout. He should have just taken the sack. This is maybe a little bit of a lack of an awareness of where they are in the game. But I think it has more to do with the fact that he thinks he has to be Superman. And to an extent, he does have to be Superman. If South Carolina does not have Spencer Rattler, I'm not sure they win a game this year. That is how impactful I think South Carolina or Spencer Rattler is on South Carolina's team. And we're going to end the film review here and get into my conclusions. So in conclusion, my boy needs help. I mean, his offensive line is absolutely horrible, and it really isn't giving him a fair chance to show his talents. He's still flashing, but the offensive line has caused him to make mistakes that I just flat out and straight up believe that he would not make if he had time. Most notably, it's that he understands that his offensive line is bad. He understands that the running back room isn't great. And he knows that he has really good wide receivers still. So he thinks, I have to get the ball to the wide receivers at all costs. I have to be Superman. I have to put everything on my shoulders, because if I don't, we are not even going to be in this game, let alone have a chance to win it. Because I think he's put up some pretty close to heroic performances, specifically against North Carolina, but also Mississippi State. He was also really, really good in that game as well. So we legitimately see some very, very high level play out of him to go along with extraordinary physical talent. And the fact that he does still have a lot of things that he can work on, to me, is not that big of a negative, because the vast majority of quarterback prospects in this class still have things that they need to work on. Right now, he's my QB3. I haven't really done a deep dive into Shader Sanders. I've seen him play live a couple times. Well, not live, but I watched him on the TV play a couple times. But I haven't really gone back and studied that film, but I'm very impressed with him. Right now, he's QB4, and then Penix I have at 5. And Rattler, I think the lowest he's ever going to fall for me is probably QB5, which I still think is going to get him to go in the first round, because I think we are dramatically underestimating how many first-round picks are going to be quarterbacks in this upcoming class, because there's 7 to 10 teams that I can talk myself into taking a quarterback in the first round, and there are like 7 to 10 prospects that I think are first-round caliber in this upcoming draft class. So I think we're going to see 6, 7, maybe even 8 quarterbacks go in the first round, assuming they all come out. Now, I think it's very likely that J.J. McCarthy, Shader Sanders go back to school, because next year's class is not the same as this year's class. But if they don't, I still think they're first-round caliber players, so I think they're probably going to go in the first round. The last thing that I'm going to touch on here before we end the video is the elephant in the room, quote unquote. And that is the character concerns surrounding Spencer Rattler. First thing I want to say, I do not give a single ounce of a fuck about a TV show that was made 7 years ago when he was 17 years old. I do not give a shit about anything that happened in that show at all. I do not care. And the last thing that I want to say is I do not take off the field concerns into account when I am scouting players, because I do not have the opportunity to talk to those players. So when I grade players, it is purely based on the film and what I can see from them. Now, I will mention that there are quote-unquote character concerns about certain prospects, or that certain prospects were a captain and you never really hear anything bad about them. I've spoken about J.J. McCarthy like that in the 2 videos I've made about him. But if I were to sit down and grade J.J. McCarthy for the 2024 draft class, I'm not sure he comes out or not, but I would not take that into account and raise his grade, even though that is something that probably should raise your grade, and negative concerns about your character or your personality is probably something that should lower your grade. But I can't take those things into account in good faith, because I can't hear that person's side of the story. Now, the one exception to that rule is when I don't think there are any character concerns. And I'll give you my example. My example for that was Jalen Carter from this past off season. Okay, he was the #1 player in the class, and people got on him for being in a race where someone tragically died. I don't care that he was racing. I mean, I live in the middle of country bumpkin town. I can count on one hand the number of people that I know that have not driven really, really fast. This is just something that is perhaps unfortunate, but young people do this. Like, I'm 25. Like, I'm not trying to act like I'm fucking 55 or anything, but this is just something that kids do. They drive fast cars. They like cars, or they don't drive fast cars most of the time because they don't have money, but they drive cars fast. And the whole thing with whether or not he left the scene of the crime or if he stayed, there is no evidence to suggest that he left the crime scene early. I don't know where that came from. At one point, his lawyer released a statement that said that it was objectively false and that people were misconstruing the fact that the police wanted to ask him more questions. So he went to the police station the following day to answer more questions about the incident. And that was somehow him turning himself in or whatever. The fact remains that I would not have taken Jalen Carter off my board for that incident. And I probably would have drafted him with the first overall pick because he's already in 4 NFL games playing like a future defensive player of the year. He's probably already a top 5 defensive tackle in the NFL, and I would be astonished if he didn't end up at one point at least winning 1 defensive player of the year, assuming health. So when it comes to stuff like this, I will sometimes take a stand and say, no, there are no off-the-field concerns here, because I think you can draw a safe conclusion from the evidence available to the public. But the vast majority of the time, I'm just not really going to talk about it and not really going to reference it. And I'm just going to kind of be like, it's out there. This is what he is on the field. And that is unfortunately all that I have for you today. So I'm going to go ahead and once again remind you to like, comment, and subscribe. And be sure to come back on Friday where we're going to preview 5 games this week. The Red River rivalry, Maryland versus Ohio State, Alabama versus Texas A&M, Kentucky versus Georgia, and Michigan versus Minnesota. But that is all that I have for you today. So I'll see you next time.